This one's going out to my co-host Dave Haley from NHSportsPage.com. We are live on the radio. This isn't a pre-recorded show we did about a month ago. Had some issues at the Toys R Us across from the mall in New Hampshire, part of the Stuff-A-Bus Toys for Tots toy drive. Unfortunately, the toy that we could use donated is maybe a new phone line or something like that. Had a couple of issues, so we had to race back to WGIR studios in Manchester. But it is the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show, the debut edition of the program. Dave, I'm psyched to debut that new intro coming up at the top of the hour, 8 o'clock.
I know we're teasing it. Is this college radio, by the way? It feels like it's college radio.
Hey, that's enough out of you.
Stuff happens. Don't forget. The Toys for Tots drive's going on all weekend long. The Marines are down there. Jeff Beaudry from Clear Channel Radio here in New Hampshire is down there accepting your donations. You can donate cash. They've got this nice wooden train down there. You can just drop the money right in there. Or, of course, the whole Toys for Tots thing. Bring an unwrapped toy. Really the need, Dave, is toddlers and teens. So just think of the two T's, toddlers and teens, Toys for Tots. It should flow right off the tongue. And that's what we're really looking for. They're back as far as the pacing, I guess you could say, where they were last year at this time, maybe the lack of snow. Last year we had the snow around Halloween, so people started thinking holidays earlier. So a little bit behind on where they need to be to help out all the needy kids here in New Hampshire. So make sure that you stop by Toys R Us in Manchester if you're on the seacoast. Fox Run Mall in Newington. We've got crews out there from the radio stations teamed up with our friends at WMUR TV Channel 9, and we'll be collecting toys till 8 o'clock tonight and then till 6 o'clock tomorrow at both of those locations, no matter where you are. The part that bums me most about the fact that we're here, we didn't get any TV time today, Dave. The MUR cameras be out there all weekend long. We could have got on TV.
I know. It seems like they've been there last few days, correct?
Well, it started yesterday, and it's going right through tomorrow. So
it's a lot warmer here.
It is a little bit warmer in the studios. And we do have special guests coming up in the next hour. We're going Manchester heavy in the next hour because we're going to talk to Dave Keefe, head coach of the Trinity Pioneers, a team that was knocked off by our other guest in the next hour, the Central Little Greens coach, Doc Wheeler. Doc Wheeler will be in studio. Hopefully they'll get the message that we're in studio.
I got one of them. I'll get Doc.
We'll talk to them both here in studio on the show as we continue the transition from the New Hampshire High School football show to the New Hampshire High School hoop show, much to your satisfaction.
I'm happy. I was at opening night last night, and Division III and Division IV opened up play last night, so I'm in it. I'm ready to roll.
And you went to Bo Kearsarge.
I went to Kearsarge. Yeah, Bo at Kearsarge. Lucas Croto, who was just the player of the year 5-6 years ago at Spalding. 5 years ago is the new head coach of Bo, and he won his coaching debut last night, 51-47.
And how does the team look? I mean, I know he went to SNU.
Yep.
And played 4 years for Stan Spiro.
Yep.
He's not too far removed from college. I mean, did he just graduate last year?
He just graduated.
And so he didn't have any coaching experience.
No.
But the name got him that job.
He did. He looked. I'm telling you, he's good. I said afterwards. I said, I think you're good at this. He, because we knew each other when I was covering. He was year one of the site. He was a senior. And I used to talk to his mom, actually, at games. But he did really well, I mean, you can tell when a team is well coached and when they're not. It's opening night, and in Division III and Division IV, a lot of these kids are soccer players or football players. They don't play as much as the Central kids do. These kids, at the higher levels are out there playing all year round. So there's a lot of kicking the ball around. That's an understatement. But you can tell that, they're flashing to the high post against a zone. They're flashing to the middle, and then against a press and streaking up the sidelines on an outlet. They're just in the right spots. And he said to me before the game, I said, what do you have? And he said, because we played phone tag when I did the preview, he said, I have no basketball players, but I have good athletes. So he said, so we're going to press and run. And he's like, I'm going to try to get points out of transition. And they did that last night. I mean, Kearsarge didn't look great last night, but Kearsarge will be all right. Nate Camp's their coach. He does a great job, but sloppy, but a good win on the road. That's going to, and I wrote it, the article's on New Hampshire Sports Page, but I just got a text from Doc Wheeler. I think he's all set.
Good.
That's going to look like a very good win in March, too, because winning at Kearsarge isn't easy.
And an interesting note about that game is just a couple of years ago, both of those teams were in Division II, Bo and Kearsarge.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know what else is interesting is Kearsarge and Laconia moved to Division III, and they they both lost last night in their D3. White Mountains beat Laconia
So
last night.
Kearsarge was D2 last year,
Yep.
dropped down to D3. Bo dropped down a couple of years ago.
Yeah, they went to the finals 2 years ago against Somersworth and lost. This is their third year in Division III basketball.
Because I remember going to a game, and it must have been 3 seasons ago, Bo and Pembroke in the quarterfinals, I believe it was,
Yeah.
or maybe it was a first round game. I think it was quarterfinals because they you get confused. Remember, it was all quarterfinals were at UNH, but the last couple of years,
Yeah.
only the semifinals and finals have been, and the quarterfinals will move to the home of the higher seed. And I remember watching Bo and Pembroke play each other in a great game.
Yeah.
Pembroke ended up winning that game. I think that might have been the year that they lost to Milford in the championship game, one of those 2 Milford championship years. But it's amazing, a lot of movement. I mean, you look at Division I, Bedford's going to be in Division I
Yep.
this year.
Yeah.
And Mike Fitzpatrick, the former Memorial coach, the former Central coach, the former National North coach, he's got a new
The
a
Larry
new address.
Brown, the Larry Brown of New Hampshire high school coaches.
He really is.
Kearsarge has fought this move in basketball for years because they had natural rivalries with schools like John Stark, and they wanted to stay there in Division II. Nate Camp wanted to keep them there, and the kids wanted to stay, but they could only fight it so long, and they're just they were at a disadvantage playing a school like Portsmouth, who's got so many more students than they have, and so they're 0-1 their debut, but they'll be pretty solid this year, and they'll be a top half of the team, top 8 team in Division III.
You just mentioned Portsmouth, and that's a team that has been really good for a long time in basketball and football too. Obviously, they just won a championship for the first time this year in a long time. But you're close with Jim Mulvey, the head coach of the Portsmouth Clippers basketball team. They lost a lot off of that championship team. Kamal Walker,
Yeah.
Charlie Dupree,
5 starters.
Greg Segron. They lost all 5 starters.
All 5.
Something tells me they're still going to be pretty good this year,
Jim,
despite that.
You might get an angry phone call. It was hilarious. So I'm calling Division I, Division II coaches, and Jim Jim was one of my first, and he's like, Dave, we're going to win 5 games. And I said, there's nobody who's buying this story. And he's like, I'm telling you. And he's explaining why. And he just said they're a different team. They don't have the same. But then I'm talking to Stuart Mitchell from Oyster River, and I'm talking to Mike Keeney from Sauhegan, on and on and on and on. I talked to 12 different coaches in the division, and none of them are having it. He coaches so well. They got good athletes. They have a lot of kids who have played AAU who picked up some bad habits, and he's trying to get them out of those habits.
What do you mean by bad habits?
Well, AAU can be sort of roll the ball out.
No defense. And
No
Portsmouth is known for their defense.
Exactly. And he's pressing. Now, he was killing people during the summer, but he claims it's only because he played D and nobody else did. But bad habits just, they don't go over a lot. Some programs do and a lot don't. They don't go through the simple how to set a screen and roll, how to read it, how to attack it, so forth, so on. And so he's trying to get they're new kids. It's not Kamal Walker. It's not Billy Lane. It's not Charlie Dupree. It's not the kids that were in that system. So he's trying to get them, into what he's doing. And I think he's one of the handful of best coaches in the state. They'll be fine. They're going to be, I don't know in my head where I'm going to rank them, probably like 6th or 7th. They're going to be pretty good. In Division II, there's 3 teams that are over everyone else. And then from 4 to 12 is really, you can throw them up in the air and see where they land.
And Pembroke is obviously one of those teams.
They're one.
And we've been talking about them. And is this finally the senior year? Rainey Mars, senior year.
Yeah.
Matt Parsons, senior year. And I think Pat Welch, he's only a junior this year.
He's only a junior. Yeah, he's got the quickest release in the state. Yeah, those guys haven't been to UNH. Well, Parsons played and Mahar played. That's not true. As freshmen they played, but they haven't led a team there. And I think there's a lot of pressure on those guys. There has to be. They've got to be. They were number 1 last year,
right?
And they didn't win it. They didn't even they got knocked off by Co Brown in the quarterfinals.
I remember last year getting set to start the season, and I was all fired up about that Portsmouth-Pembroke game, which took place in Pembroke on opening night.
We were there.
I think they're also playing early in the year this year. And
They are. At Portsmouth.
At Portsmouth this year. I haven't been to a basketball game at Portsmouth. What's that, the Case Gym?
Yeah. Stone
The
Case Gym.
Stone Case
It's great because there's brick behind the hoops and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like
so hard drives to the basket. You could have a Hoosier situation.
Yeah, it's a fun little gym over there.
Now, I'm really looking forward to it. Next week, my first game that I'm going to be covering is Manchester Central at Alvern. We'll certainly talk to Coach Dave Doc Wheeler about that and about his team. They're certainly one of the favorites. We'll get into more of the D1 talk in the next hour of the program. But I want to talk with you about some of these smaller schools, Dave, that, look, I haven't got into, your Littletons, your Colebrookes, your Grovetons. I know nothing about those schools. So we're going to hear more about that on this program than we have before. I'm going to try and rein you in and say, look, we need to kind of take care of our listeners. Hey, there's some highlights on WMUR of that Bo Kearsarge game. They got a shot of Dave Haley on the sideline.
Writing notes.
Tell me what excites you so much about those small schools and that small school New Hampshire basketball?
Because I think those teams are more connected to their communities and their schools than a lot of the bigger schools are. That doesn't mean that the kids at Merrimack and the kids at Central aren't, completely into their teams, because they are. But there's more of a community feel to going to those games. And as I've said before, when I've driven out of Salem or I've driven out of Derry after a game, it's a bigger town, so you don't get a feel that they even knew what was going on that night. When you drive out of Jaffrey after a Conant game, or you drive out of Littleton, you have the feeling that half the town was there. I told the story once that I went to a game at Conant and I got a coffee at Dunkin' Donuts right before the game, and the girl asked me, she said, "Are you going to the game tonight?" That's not going to happen at Salem.
No,
so I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just the whole town. They're more into it, and they're packed. Those gyms are packed. And listen, I've been to Salem, and it's half full for a game against Trinity. We're going to talk to Dave Keefe pretty soon, and it's half full. I just think they're more into those teams. And New Hampshire is, I think, the 47th largest state in America. We're small towns are sort of what makes us up. So, yeah, the level of play isn't tremendous by any means at times, but by the end of the year, it's pretty good. And I just think they're more connected to their towns than the bigger schools.
And I can appreciate that. I like atmosphere. I mean, when I go to a game, I want it to
atmosphere,
be packed.
Good word.
I remember going to a game last year, Bedford-Sauhegan.
Yeah.
Rival schools, rival towns. What an atmosphere. Both games. I saw a regular season game at Bedford, and then I saw a playoff game, which was at Sauhegan, and it was great atmosphere. And you expect that for a playoff, but I like going to a regular season game and seeing that atmosphere. The atmosphere that I see at the college level. You're watching a game and Dickie V's there, and, it's Duke and North Carolina or whatever, or whoever. It doesn't even have to be Duke, North Carolina. That's an extreme. You see, like, Texas A&M going up against Texas or something like that, or, Syracuse and UConn. Just crazy atmosphere,
yeah.
And I really, really like that. And you're right. You don't see that as much on the Division I level. I think you do see more of it on the Division II level.
I think as you get smaller, it gets better.
Yeah.
And then, listen, we're at UNH every year, and everyone goes to those games. You know what I mean? I've covered teams that are half full on a Friday night, and then, of course, everybody, it's an event. So everyone's driving to UNH. It's fun, and it's a road trip for high school kids.
And you get to stop at that McDonald's on the way.
God help us all out on the road with them. But, yeah, they're out there. And so, but I'm talking Conant, a packed gym. Hopkinton packs it in. Newmarket packs it in on a Friday night, and really it's kind of the event in those towns because, frankly, there's not a ton going on, but they're just more connected. And, I wrote once, the Conant kids know every kid in the crowd. Every kid in the crowd, because there's 480 kids in the high school, knows these guys. Maybe not personally, but they know them. Pinkerton, 3,000 kids. Do kids really know, Chris Light, you know what I mean, when he's running around at shooting guard? How many kids really know him in the whole school? And so I think that makes a difference. It doesn't make it better. You just ask, why do I enjoy it? And that's why I like it.
And I think you see that great atmosphere in the Manchester matchups. Trinity, I remember seeing you last year at that Trinity Central game at Trinity. Trinity's a small gymnasium, McHugh Gym. And you got the obstructed view. It's sort of like the old Boston Garden. You could be sitting behind a pole or whatever. And just a great atmosphere. You can't squeeze any more kids in there. They do the girls, boys doubleheader, which I think is great. The 1 or 2 times a year I'll actually see some girls basketball is when those games and those teams play each other. I like the holiday tournaments coming up soon. I try and make my way. This year I'm going to try and do this. because all these games kind of go off on the same time. I usually go to the Queen City Invitational, which starts the day after Christmas. And then, I'll go there on the first day. I'll see a bunch of teams. And then I'll go to the Chick-fil-A tournament in Nashua.
Yeah. That
starts the 2 days after Christmas. I think this year, it's the 27th through the 29th, so it's like a Thursday through Saturday for that one. And I'm going to try and get out to that Oyster River Holiday Classic.
Spalding, Portsmouth, yeah.
Is Winnicott playing there too, I think?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. To go back real quick, Central Trinity, that's my favorite atmosphere. I went with, when I first started the site, my buddy Chad Fletcher and I, former Central star. I'm not sure if he was a star, but he wore a headband, so that was something that he was, that was a brave act. And he knows Doc very well and Dave Keefe. So we went to the game as a former Central guy. He kind of explained the dynamics because Mike Fitzpatrick was the overqualified assistant coach back then for Trinity. And just that atmosphere was packed. We could barely get in the gym. And just Dave's hugging Mike Stiles before the game, and Doc is hugging Ryan Bourgeois, and I'm just sitting there going, I'm a Guilford kid, so I'm like, what's going on here? And it felt like everyone in the gym had seen each other earlier in the day. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, it's just sort of Manchester-centric, and I love that atmosphere. I'm disappointed they're playing, I think, second last game of the year. It's at Central this year, but that, and I covered last year's game, which was another great game. Dawson Dixon won it with a 3 in his first game back to Trinity, but that's tremendous atmosphere when those two teams play.
All right, well, we'll talk to both coaches from those two teams. Central's Dave Doc Wheeler join us around the bottom of the hour, 8:30. We got Dave Keefe from Trinity. He's going to join us just a few minutes from now, coming on right when we get back after the top of the hour. It is the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. We are live in studio at our WGIR in Manchester studios. We had hoped to be bringing you the show live from the Toys for Tots toy drive, the Stuffle Bus event at Toys R Us in Manchester. We also got Collection Point at the Fox Run Mall in Newington. We are still out there collecting toys, so please stop by anytime today before 8, tomorrow until 6 at both those locations.
Size of the school, their fancy uniforms, and remember what got you. Focus on the fundamentals. We've gone over time and time again. And most important, don't get caught up thinking about winning or losing this game. You put your effort and concentration into playing to your potential to be the best that you can be. I don't care what the scoreboard says at the end of the game. In my book, we're going to be winners.
This is the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show.
This is a second coming. This is a call to arms. Your finest hour won't be wasted.
The New Hampshire High School Hoop Show is brought to you by the New Hampshire State Liquor Commission's Division of Enforcement.
Right now, it's not about talent, it's about heart. It's about who can go out there and play the hardest, who can go out there and play the smartest. Now, they've been here before. They're not going to give it to us. We got to go out there and we got to take it.
And now, here are your hosts, Pete Terrier.
I have a question, though. Those 2 foul shots at the end of the game, did you miss them? Or did you miss them?
Not exactly a soup question, is it?
And Dave Haley from NHSportsPage.com.
All season long, we played our game. Right now, you're playing theirs. When we step on the floor, every second that clock is ticking, we are pedal to the metal. We run the ball. We pressure the ball. And most importantly, we control the tempo of the game.
Well, good morning and welcome to the first full hour of the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show each and every Saturday morning between 7 and 9 a.m. on these two fine stations, WGIR AM 610 in and around Manchester, also 96.7 The Wave on the Seacoast. Pete Terrier, along with Dave Haley from NHSportsPage.com. Dave, your thoughts on the intro?
I want to run through a wall right now when I hear Hoosiers. All I know is Norman Dale just told me how to proceed, and I'm ready to roll.
Well,
I'm ready to do wind sprints down the hallway.
Well, speaking of outstanding high school basketball coaches, we have one in studio. We got another one coming up later on in the hour. Dave Keefe, the head coach of the Trinity Pioneers, kind enough to join us, and we did a little audible on him. We were going to be broadcasting live at the Toys for Tots toy drive at the Toys R Us in Manchester. We We had some issues there with the phone line, so we're back here in studio, and they're still doing the toy drive. We
would have been on TV.
Yeah, we just saw the live shot on WMUR. We're partnered with MUR TV on this outstanding event. We do it every single year. We also have a collection point at the Fox Run Mall in Newington. If you're listening to us on 96.7 The Wave, please bring a toy. If you want to make a cash donation instead, you can definitely do that as well. We'll be at both locations today until 8 o'clock tonight, and then tomorrow there until 6 o'clock. After the show, I'm cruising back over there, so I'll be there for a few hours this morning. But Dave Keefe, kind enough from Trinity High School, joining us a week before the tip-off to the basketball season. So thanks, Coach, for coming in, and we really appreciate having you.
Well, thanks for having me. You guys do a great job, and it's a pleasure to be here. I do have thick skin. I've been coaching for a while, and instead of changing locations, you could have just called and said, we really don't want you on.
Well, we'll see how well you do this year. I mean, you have been a top-notch program in Division I year in and year out, and I think that's not going to change this year. But before we go into this year, I want to look back at last year, because I remember talking to you in a very emotional locker room at UNH last year after that outstanding semifinal matchup and overtime. I think it might have been double overtime, maybe even triple overtime against Manchester Central. How long does it take you to get over a tough loss like that when you were so close to that championship game and you got beat by a bitter, not a bitter rival, but a heated rivalry with Manchester Central?
I was just about over it until you just brought it up. But no, that's very difficult. And like I tell people, it's very difficult as a coach, but I can coach as long as the administration will have me there. I can coach until I'm 65, 70, 80 years old. The reason I think most of us coaches are that emotional, and I so remember that moment, it's very difficult to talk because you just got done saying goodbye to seniors that you've been with for the last 2, 3, 4 years, and they become part of your life. You're with them 10 months out of the year. You're with them 4.5 months, 6 days a week, 3 hours a day. So it's more emotional. Sure, it's tough losing, but saying goodbye to those kids is the toughest thing. I mean, to have the kids go out that way. But talking to Sean McDonald, head football coach from UNH this week, congratulating him on all his awards and a great season he had, I kind of agree with his quote in the paper. I mean, you feel that way because your team has had so much success. And I much rather go to Durham every single year, hopefully win another one before I'm all done. But to get to Durham each and every year and to lose a game like that, at least we were there and the kids had that experience. But no, very difficult. It takes a while to get over that. But as the new season begins, you have new expectations and you're ready to move on.
You got a couple of kids coming in, and I know you just played Sauhegan the other night, which is, I think, probably going to be 1A in Division II to Pembroke's number 1 preseason. And I talked to Mike Keeney after the game a little bit, and he said the way he was describing it, great experience for them to play you guys, a program of your caliber. He was saying there were 3-minute stretches where you guys they made mistakes and you guys pounced. But how'd that go? So how's preseason been going for you guys?
First of all, that's the first time I met Coach Heaney from Sauhegan. Great guy. We texted after the game, and he was very appreciative of us having him. And at the same time, no, just a great guy. He has a great program over there. He's got a very talented team. The point guard they had, and please excuse me, I mean, if I don't get first or last name's correct.
Brandon Len.
There's no disrespect to anybody. If I say the big guy and the point guard, you guys know.
The lefty.
Brandon Len, great kid. My son Patrick has known him over the years. Great point guard. He's going to do very good things in Division II. Jake Kennedy, who's going to UNH on a full football scholarship to play for Coach McDonald. This kid's about 6'5", 285, and they're running a 4 route. They're going to do some damage this year. But, yeah, I mean, I think we could be a pretty good team about 4 to 6 weeks down the road. You talked about the transfers that we had come in. Ryan Otis, point guard out of Merrimack Valley. Brad Rhodes, a slasher shooter from Pembroke. We have Mabor's younger brother, Wenyan, that came over from Memorial. That's looks great on paper, but these kids haven't been with me in the past 2 or 3 years, so we got to start all over again. It's like having 3 new freshmen that are going to be either starting or in the rotation. But we did look good at times when we pushed the ball, and like all the teams in Division I right now, we're all wondering how we got to fit this all in before we start next Friday, but we'll do our best.
And who do you have, Concord? Is it Concord next Friday?
Home against Concord, home against Exeter, at Salem.
And your team's coach, and it's Dave Keefe from Trinity in studio with us. It is the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show, also being filmed on nhsportspage.com. John Kesty, our cameraman, in studio. And when people think of Trinity, they think of height. You guys have had a lot of height. Now, last year you had that to an extreme. You had Mabor Gabriel, who you mentioned, who was going to be back this year, about 6'7". You had Lauderdale, who was 6'6", 6'7", but real big. And then you had the 6'10" kid, Silver Aluko. You got more height this year. Even your I don't know what position you have Carmen Giampetruzzi playing, but maybe a small forward. Yeah. But he's about 6'3", 6'4", and he's got some size. So you do have some size, but it's not necessarily the same type of twin towers or tri-towers you've had over the last couple of years, correct?
No, and I love those kids. It's great having height, like I told the kids at practice. They bailed us out of so many games. We won at least 4 or 5 games I can think of that could have gone either way last year, where all of a sudden they're going in for a layup to win the game, and you have a 6'10", 6'8" kid just pinning a shot against the backboard or swatting it away, and we get out of there with a win. We still have some height with 6'7", Mabor. He's got to protect the basket for us. Carmen Giampetruzzi, it just gets bigger every time I see him. He's about 6'4" right now, 210 pounds. So we're still big enough, but at the same time, I think we're going to be a lot quicker. Our philosophy is to snap the rebound and go. Just push the ball, get the defense back on their heels, share the ball, and get good shots, and then we're going to throw some pressure at people this year. We're going to get after it on both ends.
It's funny talking to coaches, and a lot of them have commented that the football guys are coming in. Mike Heaney actually said this. The football guys came in, and they're sort of behind the other guys conditioning-wise because, I don't know, I hope Coach Bellevue isn't listening, but not that there's. But at football practices, you stand around a little more than basketball, where you're constantly you're sprinting to different drills and so forth. You've got a lot of kids in your program, like Mabor, like your son Patrick, who play year round all the time. Well, Carmen and Romeo Mizuku, those guys were playing football all fall. Are they a little rusty still? Does it take a little time for those guys to get back into the swing?
Most of them. Carmen is beat up. Doing much better. Romeo has a wrist injury that we're working on from day to day, week to week. They're mending, and that throws off your shot. Carmen's throwing these line drive shots because his arms are bruised up. I mean, once the bruises go away, then he starts getting a little air underneath that basketball. Romeo, he's going after rebounds with one hand right now, and once that wrist gets better, he'll be snapping it with two. So they are a little behind, but they catch up very quickly.
What's the thought process going through your mind? I see you at football games all the time. I assume you go to some Trinity games, or maybe you don't because you don't want to watch it. But as a coach whose season is about to start, and take, for example, the Turkey Bowl, which is huge, and Trinity was involved with that against Manchester Central, and we kind of joked on the air about you and Doc Wheeler just praying that those players could get through that game because practice started on Monday. Do you worry about them getting hurt in other sports, especially football?
Most definitely. And if anybody says they don't, I think they're crazy. This is what I do. For the past 2 Turkey Bowls, I'm in my cellar, have it on Channel 22, whatever the local access station is, and I'm watching the game, having a little turkey dinner, and once that final whistle goes off, if I see number 12, number 5, and number 7 walk off that field, I'm like, yes, we're all set for Monday. And I'm being honest. I don't even go to the game. I watch it on TV because you hear more. Are there any injuries? Who went down? And you don't get that on replays, and you don't get that when you're at the game. So, you worry. And when they walk through that gym on that Monday after Thanksgiving, it's like, yes, we're all set to start.
I was talking earlier before you came on air about Pete doesn't let me talk about the Colbrooks and the Grovetons of the world, which is I'm trying as hard as I can to get there.
I try and shy him away from it. It's not that I don't.
And I'm not going to drag you there either. But what I was saying is the atmospheres of those games I love so much. And I was talking about Trinity Central. A guy by the name of Chad Fletcher and I went over there once. You may remember him. And he and I went. He's a former player, played for you, played for Doc and Fitzy. But never seen anything like it where, you're hugging Mike Stides before the game and Doc's hugging Ryan Bourgeois. And it's just such a terrific atmosphere. I say it seems like everyone saw each other earlier in the day. And you're a big part of that, just the kind of personality you are and the way you're able to kind of bring people in. And Doc's the same way. Mm-hmm. But talk a little bit about that, because I circle that game every year. I love going to that game.
Yeah, I remember reading that article, and then I didn't even realize we're doing it because we just do that. I mean, here are kids that we play against, in our gym, open gyms, at Central's open gyms. They're competing all the time. Mike Stiles would call me when he was in high school. Hey, can you open up your gym? We're trying to get some shots in. Sure. If you want to, get some shots in, I don't care who you play for. Come on up. As long as I can, put my 6th grade son in there with you. Sure. And get some shots up. But I mean, it's just that mutual respect for both. For the other program, Doc Wheeler does a great job at Central, and it's just the respect that I have for Doc and his players, and vice versa. And even today, it continues. My son works out with Mike Stiles, David Medall, all summer long up at SNU. Mike Stiles, before my son had his license, would come by the house, pick him up. Let's go, Pat. We're going to work out. So it's very nice.
Yeah.
We'll take a timeout, come back more with Dave Keefe, head coach of the Trinity Pioneers, as he's less than a week away now from the opener. He plays Concord at home. Can't wait to get out there and start covering some hoops. Dave was out there covering a game for nhsportspage.com. You want to check out his work. Bo and Kearsarge, pretty good game last night, too. Lucas Croto, former Spalding star. Was he Mr. Basketball in New Hampshire?
I think it's either him or Chris Petsy, right? 5 years ago. I think he won it. I think Croto won it.
He's now the head coach of the Bo Falcons basketball team. And,
he's undefeated.
He's undefeated as a coach. He's going after you, Coach Keefe. We'll come back with more from Coach Keefe. We've also got Dave Doc Wheeler from Manchester Central coming up a little bit after the bottom of the hour. We'll see if they duke it out or hug or who knows what. High five maybe when they cross paths going in and out of here. It is the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. It is WGIR AM 610 and 96.7 The Wave. It is the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show each and every Saturday morning between 7 and 9 a.m. WGIR AM 610 in and around Manchester. Also got a Seacoast signal for you Winnicott fans, you Portsmouth Clipper fans. You're a fan of the Exeter Bluehawks, the Spalding Red Raiders, the Dover Green Wave. I could go on and on and on. I could even name some small schools, Somersworth. I could name Farmington.
Keep going.
I couldn't tell you what the nickname of Farmington is.
Tigers.
I know that the Epping Blue Devils, right? The Salem Blue Devils, the Epping Blue Devils, is that correct?
Epping Blue Devils.
Right?
Yeah.
Hey. But that's about as far as I will go.
Look at you patting yourself on the back.
We're doing the show in studio. We were supposed to be over at the Toys R Us Toy Drive in Manchester doing the show as part of that great event. Partnered up our Clear Channel stations here in New Hampshire along with WMUR TV. Collecting toys with the Marines and their Toys for Tots program for the needy kids in here in the New Hampshire area. And we had some issues, so we came to the studio. But the toy drive is still going on all day today till 8 o'clock. All day tomorrow until 6 o'clock. Matter of fact, when I got there this morning at about 6:30 or whatever, there was already people in there shopping.
Yeah.
They were open till 1 o'clock in the morning, last night / this morning. So it is the holiday season. So if you're out there shopping, you're doing something, please stop by that Toys R Us Toys for Tots Toy Drive in Manchester or the Fox Run Mall location. We got our crews out there in the parking lot out by where the Buffalo Wild Wings is. So we're going to be out there all day today and all day tomorrow. So please come by with a toy. Really, the need area is toddlers. I've got two young kids, a kid that's almost 3 and another kid who's almost 5, both boys. We got so many toys. I wish they would take used toys because I would just take like half the toys lying around my living room, half the 7,000 little cars we
I
have.
have 30 Barbie dolls.
And
I can
just
send away. Half of them are naked, but still, we can find them close.
So please, the areas of need are toddlers and teens. And Coach Dave Keefe from Trinity is here with us. He has a teen boy, and he plays basketball for him, Patrick Keefe. I was hoping you could talk a little bit about that father-son coaching dynamic. We had an interview. I was doing the football show with Mark Thaler earlier this year, and Trevor Knight from Nashua South and his father, Scott Knight, coaches the football team. And we had Scott Knight on the morning after his son Trevor had a 71-yard game-winning touchdown run to beat Manchester Central. It was a huge play. It was a huge game. And we asked him, skip the coach peak for a second and give us real stuff, and asked him how he felt when his son made that play to win that game. I'm hoping you can kind of harken back to last year when Patrick went in and really kind of establish himself as a kid that you could trust and have in your rotation and a top performer. What's going through your mind? What's the conversation you had with him maybe that night when you got home and it was just quiet time between you and him?
Sure. I mean, during the season, I think any coach would tell you I treat him just like anybody else, which I do. I have the same expectations for everyone else as I do my son. But yeah, I mean, very fortunate to be coaching my son. He's a great kid, hard-working kid. And one memory that I'll never forget, and hopefully there's a few more over the next 2 years, we're up at Dover, first game of the season. Patrick was the third or fourth person off the bench, so eighth, ninth man. And he ended up with 19 points, being the high scorer as a sophomore, first game. And that's very special when I said to myself, it's the first time I caught myself, because, when I get on the sideline, sometimes I get a little animated. And excuse me, I get lost in my own little world, and I don't hear much what's going on, and except for what's right in front of me. And I kind of took 5 seconds to myself saying, wow, this is pretty special. My son has worked very hard, 19 points off the bench, and my 84-year-old dad sitting 3 rows behind
Wow.
me. So that was pretty special. That's one of the things that I'll take to my grave with me, and I'm just hoping there's a few more moments like that. But enough of those stories, because I don't like to talk about those. But back to practice, he's treated like everybody else. Sometimes you can be a little more difficult. I mean, a little harder on him, which I am at times. I try to catch myself. But no, I think it's going to be it's a good situation. We'll talk on the car ride home. I mean, most kids are happy. They get to hop in another car and get away from Coach Keefe. So, skid marks out of the parking lot. Let's get away from this crazed man, and he has to hop in the car with me. So, but we really don't talk much about it at home. I do all my talking at practice, on the court. Once he gets into the car, he's my son, and we don't talk basketball.
I'm kind of finishing up talking to D2 coaches and Division I coaches. Kind of will come probably on Sunday, but you and I talked the other day just about other teams out there. I mean, you guys are in the mix as usual. Central, I think, is probably your number one team going into it. I like Nashua South a lot, but just talk about some of those other teams that we talked about the other day. But I mean, there's a lot of parity when you talk about that the top 10 teams. Concord's going to be improved this year, and you kind of talk about other teams that you're looking at this year.
Again, no disrespect to any teams out there. I'm hoping I become the number 7 seed, just like Merrimack last year. I'd love to be the 7th seed and win the whole thing. I'm not really good at polls. I tell my kids, don't try to get too wrapped up in those, because some kids will say, hey, we're the number 1 seed. That means we don't have to practice about 3 or 4 days a week. No, you still got to keep working. It's a process, I tell the kids. Like I learned from Chip Kelly out in Oregon. It's a process. You got to get better each and every day to become a great team. But yeah, sure, Central's got to be tough. All the city games are going to be difficult. West Memorial, on paper, I think has the most talent.
Yeah.
They're a talented group of kids. Can they put it together? Nashua South with the Prestons, Jack and Tim, maybe?
Tim Preston's point guard.
Yeah, Tim's the point guard, yeah.
They're tough. Spalding. Like I told Dave the other day, I think that kid Paradise, I think he's been up there for like 7 or 8 years. He just won't go away.
That's the way I feel about Carmen Giampetruzzi, by the way. He's got another year next year.
Spalding's very tough, especially up there, when they're gym and a great coach, Tim Cronin.
I think Winnicott's going to be good this year,
too. Yeah, Winnicott's going to be good.
They got some good young talent.
Yeah.
The rumors out there, and again, this is just what I hear or what I read. He's going with, just the hockey shifts, a new 5 every 3 or 4 minutes coming at you, playing a different style than the old Jack Ford days. So they're going to be tough. Salem with the kid Ruffin, dangerous. We played them in the fall league. They did very well down there. So it's Mike Fitzpatrick's got a nice group of kids over at Bedford, and we all know that he's one of the top coaches in Division I. He's got to do some special things over there too and surprise some people. So you have to come ready to play. It's just like last year. I don't think there's any clear-cut favorite like it was back when Trinity had Jordan Laguerre or when Central had Tyler Roach, where they were expected to win it 2-3 years in a row. I think it's pretty much wide open. It all comes down to who's got to get better, who's got to stay injury-free, and who's got to have a little bit of that St. Patrick's Day luck on the 16th of March.
So you talked earlier about the division still unbalanced, and the one team that you don't get to play this year is Pinkerton. Do you like that? Would you rather just play everybody, or does it matter?
It all depends how good Pinkerton is. As a matter of fact, I'll be scrimmaging Pete Rosinski and his team in about 2 or 3 hours from now. But they're big, they're quick. That's just the way things are set up, and there's nothing I can do about that. It's with Bedford being Division I, every 2 years there'll be a team that you don't play, and then 2 years from now will be another team. So that's just the way things are set up. So we just have to go with it and do our best.
Do you know if you play at Bedford this year or if you play Bedford at your place?
Everyone tells me when we're playing. The only games I know right now, besides the first 3, everyone tells me when we're playing Doc Wheeler in Central.
Second to last game of the year.
January 26th, and it's senior night for Central. I've heard that a million
times. That's got to be February 26th.
They'll sleepwalk.
Right?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
No? Okay, whatever. February 26th.
They'll sleepwalk through that game, I'm sure.
Yeah. So everyone tells me when we're playing Doc Wheeler and Central, so I know that one already. It's senior night, all the kids are telling me. And Mike Fitzpatrick, good friend, my cousin. I just know we're out there. We're at Bedford sometime mid-January.
Well, that'll be cool because you get to play in a new gym.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. I try to get a scrimmage over there. I try to sneak my way in there so I can get a feel for the gym and the kids.
It's nice.
But he said maybe we'll do it some other time, so I think he knew what my
Coach, we really appreciate you coming in and spending some time with us here, and we will certainly see you on the court real soon. And best of luck with the season, and have a happy holiday. Okay.
Yeah. In close, I'd just like to say that basketball is very important to myself and Coach Wheeler, who just walked in. But I think what you guys are doing today with the Toys Are Tots, and the toy drive is far more important. I'm a guidance counselor here in Manchester, and we adopted 50 families. So that whole week of December 17th, I am out in a big truck and just loading up with gifts and delivering it to needy families in Manchester. And that's the more important things in the world. Polls are great, and getting a top 4 seed, very important in our lives. But there's just so many families out there that are so needy, and I think you guys are doing a great job.
All right, Coach Dave Keefe from Trinity, thanks so much, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, quick timeout. Come back. Dave Doc Wheeler from Manchester Central is in the house. We'll get the early look at the favorites in Division I. I think everybody agrees Central, the team to beat this year. We'll have Coach Wheeler on next when we return to the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show on WGIR AM 610 and 96.7 The Wave. I just have to let this one roll. I know the light goes on. I'm supposed to talk.
I was like, start talking.
When you can see Dave Doc Wheeler doing a little, I don't know what that was. Was that a jig?
He's like, what have I walked into?
Is that a jig? Dave Doc Wheeler from Manchester Central is our guest on the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. I want to thank Dave Keefe from Trinity High School. Nice moment between those two in the crossover. Dave Haley from NHSportsPage.com. Filming the show live as we always do on NHSportsPage.com. John Kesty will have this up on the site at some point later on this weekend. Good morning, Coach. Sorry about the little curveball with the change of plans, and you're in studio, but we appreciate you coming in and being flexible.
Just a pleasure to be here with you too.
Well, we are part of the Toys for Tots drive going on with the U.S. Marine Corps today. Our friends Clear Channel Radio and WMUR TV. The toy drive is still going on, even though we're in studio live and we're not at the Toys R Us in Manchester. Please, if you're in the area, you got time, or make the time. Bring an unwrapped toy over there to the Toys R Us in Manchester, or if you're listening on our Seacoast station, 96.7 The Wave, stop on by the Clear Channel New Hampshire crew at the Fox Run Mall in Newington. They're over at the entrance by the food court and the Buffalo Wild Wings, so we hope to see you guys out there and bring a toy. Dave, we talked about this last year when we had you on the show, and you have had to help out your players at this time of year because they just don't have the money to have a happy Christmas, and it's something that you can certainly relate to, especially at Central.
Absolutely. We get an interesting diversity at Central, and we get the rich kids from the North End and some inner city kids. And one of the great things as an older person to watch is to see the two groups come together. The kids with more financial ability always help out and do certain things for the kids with less. And it's just a great life lesson for these kids to start learning, and it makes you feel great to watch it and watch them come together. And that's the way it should be. People with means should be helping the people with less. And that's the cause that you guys are working with, and I just applaud you for doing so.
Well, thank you very much. Let's talk about your team, Coach. We talked to Coach Keefe about the game that ended last year for his team.
Yep.
Your team was on the good end of that, and then you had the unfortunate circumstance of having to play a really hot Merrimack team in the championship game, and they really were playing well. That was no 7 seed that you guys played in the championship, but you got to give your team a lot of credit because I don't think a lot of people expected you to be in that game last year.
You know, I'll tell you, it's the first time I've ever lost, coaching in a final. And at the end of the game, it's a really unique feeling because it's really hard to say goodbye to your kids. You develop a close relationship with them over a 2-3 year span, and it's hard to say goodbye. But I'll tell you, that day, those kids felt a sense of accomplishment from where they started to what they ended. They knew they did well. And they knew that they actually played a very good game in the final, and it wasn't good enough. And I think there's a certain self-satisfaction when you do your best. You feel it, you know it. And it's the most unique loss I've ever experienced in my life. It wasn't a lot of heartache about the result. I think some of the heartache was, they're leaving. Certain kids are leaving. And it was good. It was the best loss I've ever had, to be honest.
When I go to every year when I'm at UNH for the Final Four, whatever division it is, and I love catching up with all you guys. Some years you're coaching, some years are not. Most of the years you're coaching. But when I talk to you guys, because I've talked to you in the preseason, during the season, I love asking coaches. The two things I know how you did. I see the results. But I always say, did you have fun with these guys? Do you like these guys? And it's always nice to hear coaches say, I remember the Co-Brown coach, Dave Smith, said to me a couple years ago, they won like 8 games. He said, Dave, we won as many games as we possibly could. They were a great group. They worked so hard. He goes, we had a great year. You know what I mean? And it's like you said, it's about more. You really like this group you got right now.
I love the group we have right now. We're coming off a 3 or 4 year span at Central where we had a lot of at-risk kids. Right? It was 1 year ago today. We're walking into our practice, and the kid that we thought was going to be our starting point guard had just got arrested for stealing a car. All right? And then, you got to adjust the next guy up. It's got to, take over a spot. And that takes a while. It takes a while to develop, new guys, new roles, and so on. And the last 3 or 4 years, it seems like we've really had a lot of that. And it's just, how certain cycles go. We've got kids from stronger families and stronger work ethics. There's a lot of good things about the current group that we have now. And, man, they show up. They come to work. They're coachable kids. They're pretty athletic. And they show up to work, and they're coachable. So I really love the group that we have.
What is the status of Isaiah Joseph? I know he was talking to the NHIAA.
Right. We're waiting to see if Isaiah can get a waiver.
Okay.
Isaiah just turned 18 years old, and it's his 5th year of high school. And the only thing I can say, in regards to that is I didn't know him except for the last, year and a half, 2 years. And this boy is an inner city kid, a brother that's been in and out of different facilities, split parents, a number of issues at home. And the development that this kid has made is been amazing. I mean, huge steps. Last year, he would think nothing of missing a practice. He missed the Trinity game last year. Can you imagine a Central kid missing a Trinity Central game? All right, didn't come. Didn't see him for a couple of days of practice. Sent kids over to his house. Is he okay? Nobody's home. I mean, so this boy ends up, coming to the tournament, actually playing a little bit for us, getting 4 or 5 points a game. He has absolutely worked, and he's made himself a very good player. So we're hoping to hear back, from the NHIA before his first game. See if if that waiver can be granted. And I think he's the poster child. If there ever was a reason to give a kid a waiver, this kid's the kid.
That's Dave Doc Wheeler, head coach of the Central Little Green, in studio with us here at New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. Pete Terrier, along with Dave Haley from NHSportsPage.com. Coach, another kid that really took a big step forward last year is Troy Pelletier.
Absolutely.
I saw something in him as a sophomore. Obviously, you did. You have him in practice every day, where he was coming in on that John Wickie team and had some contributions for you guys. Last year, especially at the end of the season, he really, really blossomed right before your eyes and right before our eyes. Where is he at this point, going into his senior year and really a Player of the Year candidate in D1?
I agree with you. He's rusty. You know, he's coming off an all-state football season. Very, very good athlete. Very good football player. I think Troy will have football and basketball options, in regards to going to college. I think he will be a Player of the Year type of candidate. He's grown to about 6'4". He's already, well over the rim, and we're 10 practices in, and if he can make the same improvement in season as he did last year, he's absolutely going for free to a number of different spots. He's got a unique ability, shoot threes. He can get to the basket. He developed the mid-range game. If you guys were talking about the Trinity game last year, it was so, he played such a good, dominant game. The UNH coach came up to me and started inquiring about him right after that. What's his, what's he up to? What's his plans? And he's just that good an athlete. So when we get him and he's playing basketball for a couple hours a day, 6 days a week, there's going to be rapid improvement because he's a great kid. He's a worker. He's coachable, and it's nice when your best player is like that.
You got a group. You're talking about when we spoke the other day. You're talking about Dawson Dixon and Brett Hansen, and you were saying to me these guys play pickup ball and then they drive an hour and they go play pickup ball an hour away, and I'm sure you can relate. When we were kids, driving around with a ball in your car, looking for driving by courts and stuff like that. It's got to be fun. It's got to be fun to have kids like that. That you don't have to, they're not trudging into practice. They're there ready to roll.
It's I got to say, as a coach, it's almost necessary. Like you have a passion for the game, you have a certain work ethic for the game, and think about it. If you got 12 or 13 kids that don't share that passion, it's tough to get yourself ready for how many practices? Over 100 practices over a 4-month span. And I'll tell you, as a coach, I look at it as from a unique perspective. Is I've got to honor their commitment, their work ethic, their passion for the game drives me to work harder, prepare, and be better for them, and they've earned that. They deserve that, with the investment that they put into it.
You had a great line to me on the phone. You said, I remember it. You said you're saying how much you like this group again, and you said, I have to spend 5 days and weeks with these guys. The games are only Tuesdays and Fridays for a couple hours. I got to be in there on Saturday mornings and Monday nights, and so you gotta, when you got a group like that you enjoy, and I know Dave's got a group like that at Trinity too, and it's gonna make the winners a lot easier.
Dave said he really enjoyed his group last year.
Yeah,
I haven't talked to him this much about this year's group, but absolutely, it's a big difference. I found myself going to way more college practices, looking at different tapes, doing anything that we can do possibly to get ready and be better for this season.
All right, we got to take a time out. We got Dave Doc Wheeler. I almost called him Dave Keep. Dave Doc Wheeler from Central. We just had Dave Keep in studio from Trinity a few minutes ago.
He's a lot better looking.
We'll come back, get more with Doc Wheeler, talk a little bit about the upcoming season. They got Alvern coming up. I'm going to be covering that game for the radio show and NHSportsPage.com next Friday. I think that's at the Steckowitz Gym in Hudson, is it? Okay, so that's Friday night. The Division I season tips off. More coming up on the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. Don't forget, Toys R Us in Manchester, our Toys for Tots location here locally in Manchester. Also, Fox Run Mall in Newington over by the food court and the Buffalo Wild Wings. Go there all day. Our Clear Channel New Hampshire crew, along with our friends at WMUR TV and the Marines, the Toys for Tots program, going to be there till 8 o'clock tonight, accepting unwrapped toys as donations for Toys for Tots. You can also donate cash if you want to as well. 8 o'clock tonight is the deadline for that. And then all day tomorrow up until 6 o'clock. Great cause. We hope you will come out and support the cause. More of the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show coming up next on WGIR AM 610 and 96.7 The Wave. Heading up towards top of the hour, 9 o'clock. It is the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. Pete Terry along with Dave Haley from NHSportsPage.com. Our special in-studio guest, Dave Doc Wheeler from the Central Little Green. And I know, Coach, you want to do a shout-out to one of your biggest fans, and it's also a kid that I follow on Twitter. We're talking about Mikey Martineau.
Our ace in the hole, Mikey Martineau.
Yeah,
he's going to, Mikey's a senior. He's been a manager for us for 3 years, and he loves your show, listens every week. And we told him, I made a deal with him. I'm gonna get him in a game this year.
Well, a special story that I want to talk about Mikey is a couple of years ago, it was last season, as a matter of fact. I go to the game. You see me at the game with my son, especially my older son, Zach, who's going to be 5. He loves going to games, whether it's football, basketball, hockey. Yep. And we're at the game at Central, and I think you guys were playing Pinkerton that night. So during halftime, sometimes kids go out on the floor while you guys are in the locker room and they shoot around and stuff. And Mikey's out there, and my son Zach runs down on the floor, and Mikey hands him a basketball, and my son Zach starts dribbling around. Mikey gets up in his shirt defensively, and Mikey's covering my son. So every time we go to a game now, he's like, "Hey, there's that little green guy who guarded me." It's just hilarious.
I'll tell you, Mikey's got a good gig, man. He comes to almost every one of our practices. The head custodian shows up a lot of times and plays him one-on-one. And our assistant coach, who's a great guy, Tom Dixon, plays him one-on-one. So he usually has a couple one-on-one games every practice. He usually gets the win over the head custodian, but he went 1-69 against Coach Dixon playing one-on-one last year. But I'll tell you, that one day he won, he's going around the gym, his hands are up. He's the happiest guy in New Hampshire that day.
Well, speaking of Coach Dixon, how's the progression of Dawson Dixon going? I mean, when he came on board with you guys after transferring from Trinity, played there his freshman year, saw some time, but really was your starting point guard last year.
Absolutely.
And I thought improved as the season went on. What's he looking like going into his junior year?
I'm so proud of this young man. He was a pass-first guy last year, and our big goal for him in the offseason was to change that, to make him a scoring threat. And so we did a lot of skill work with him. We've done a lot of different things that makes him have to look at the basket. And I really think he's going to be a double-digit scorer for us every game. And he's one of those unique point guards that is smart enough to pass to the right guy in the right spot. And when we played Memorial last year in a really, really tough quarterfinal game, I really thought that was the difference. We had Troy Pelletier, who was just really coming on in a first team all-league player last year, and at the end of that game he found Troy 2 or 3 times in the right spot. You win the game by 6 or 7 points. That's big. So I think with Dawson, we're trying to get him to be the whole package. And as a sophomore playing point, you're going to have certain abilities and you're going to be limited, and it's part of your maturation process in getting better as a player. Well, first of all, there's not too many kids that start on a varsity team as a sophomore. So now he's going to be our junior starting point guard with a much better offensive game. His defensive game's starting to come. So I'm just really proud of his progression.
Who do you and again, we talked earlier in the week, but who do you see as the top? I mentioned earlier, I like Nashua South as a team to be there. You open with Alvern, we could talk about them. I think they got Tyler Livingston back. And a kid I really like, Alec Yokes, I think that's how you say it. Yosh, who's dropped a lot of weight and is really, he's got a nice little touch as a jump shooter. And Seth Guerin does a nice job with those guys always. But those are just two of the teams, but just some of your thoughts about them.
I'll tell you, that Livingston scares me to death.
Yeah, he's like a Troy Pelletier clone a little bit.
He's bigger, though. He's big, all right? And he can really shoot it. he's a very skilled player. And the neat thing about him is he's a great student. So he's looking at some top Division III schools. So that's going to be a mountain for us. And again, I'm I walk around with blinders, so I'm really concerned about at Alvern, at Concord, at home versus Dover. And I'll tell you, Dover's a team not a lot of people are talking about. We played them this summer, and they physically manhandled us. They've got about 9 seniors on that team, and Mike Romps is a really dynamic coach, and I think they're going to be good. But I think the city teams, obviously Trinity, you got 2 first-team all-league players on the same team. You got 3 new kids that have come in. Coach Keefe's son's a very, very good player. A lot of talent there. You got Memorial. Again, I think a lot of people would agree maybe on a roster, maybe the most talented team if they can put it together.
Yeah.
They gave us, you look at how they finished last year with Coach Fitzpatrick, upset Pinkerton at Pinkerton, one of the most talented teams in our league. They're coming in our place in a quarterfinal game. It was an absolute war. When we snuck it out at the end, I think everybody's going to be afraid to play them. And when Memorial plays a city school, you will be guaranteed to get their best punch that day. And then you look at the Seacoast schools. Winnicott's good, Spalding's good, and so on.
Guys, we've got about a minute left to go. So, Coach, just want to ask you quickly about the holiday tournament, the Queen City Invitational. It's an awesome event.
Yep.
I love it because you can see 8 teams all from New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Great event. You guys actually play Trinity in that first game. Is that the nightcap that night, or Memorial play the late game?
Memorial's always the nightcap of the first round, and we're blessed to have Goffstown and Bedford are coming into it. So we're really going to have a nice local flavor to it. Spoke with the Goffstown coach last night, Justin Gorham. He's really excited about being in it.
They run.
All right.
They run is right, man.
I got to end it. We're out of time. Coach, thanks so much for coming in. I'll definitely see you Friday night. I'll be at the game, and I look forward to it. And
we'll make sure Mikey lets your son score this time.
Please. I probably won't be bringing Zach for this one. We're not going to actually work.
Move your feet, Mikey. Move your feet.
That's it, brother.
All right. Don't forget, Mark Hebert coming up next. He's going to be in studio, but the Toys for Tot toy drive going on till tonight at 8. Manchester, Toys R Us, Fox Run Mall at Newington, tomorrow till 6, both locations.